breaking news. Phillip Rivers is going to always want to play again. Talk to any retired football player. They're always going to want to play again. For the older football, they don't go by what he says. Phillip Rivers struggled when he did play. Talking about coming back 2 years out. I remember this. I realized that, and hockey players aren't a whole lot different than football players, but the football players are worse. You got to largely drag them kicking and screaming from the field. And I remember this, Dupes. Do you remember the old swamp dog, Ron Estee? I just talked to his wife a couple weeks ago. He was the defensive line coach for the Riders for years, and he felt like family to me. And his wife's Debbie, and they're living down there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And he won. He was on those Eskimo teams, the 5 in a row. 70s as well, iconic Edmonton team. So the people in Edmonton would know the name Ron Estee. He's in the Eskimos Hall of Fame, Canadian Football Hall of Fame, LSU Tigers Hall of Fame. He's in every Hall of Fame. And he was the guy that talked like the water boy in the water boy. Who was the coach he couldn't understand? Was it the coach? Bobby Boucher? Swamp, yeah. We could never understand him. He had this southern drawl. We couldn't understand him. But I remember one time, Estee, when he was with us with Saskatchewan, he said he would cut one arm, we'll win one point. We're like, what? You put subtitles under that? And I can't remember. One of the other coaches said he'd cut his arm off to have just one more play.
Get ready for the Rod Pedersen Show.
It's like Ravine, the famed illusionist. He would hypnotize the whole crowd. My dad always told this joke. He goes, oh, yeah, Ravine was performing at the Center of the Arts. He had the whole room hypnotized. And he said, the next thing I say, you will all do. And he got tripped up, tangled in his mic cord and tripped and went, crap. Took him 2 weeks to get the smell out.
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
True story, nothing but true stories here on the RP Show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to your favorite daytime sports talk show, coming at you live on Game Plus Television. Nationally in Canada, 31 U.S. states, on the radio in Atlanta. On the docket today, among our guest list, Iron Mike Keenan. He's coming up in hour 2. I can't wait to chat with Iron Mike. We have breaking news today. And listen, Moose remains on vacation. He is in Indonesia, although he has sent me his weekly column. So he's getting a few things done there in Indonesia. But in his absence, people are enjoying the guest hosts. We have the Silver Fox, Kelly Rempel. And all I will say is the man was the marketing and sales coordinator with the Warriors, the Pats, did sales at CTV. Now he's a very successful entrepreneur and a former WWF promoter and manager. Has that got it, Rems? Has that got it all?
Yeah, sort of an independent agent for Bret the Hitman Hart back in the day.
Perfect.
And WWF promoter. Yeah.
Right. I want to tell the audience, Section 1 will be NFL, NHL Section 2, almost entirely Vince McMahon, the Netflix documentary, Mr. McMahon. Kelly Rempel stars in it. I have proof. So that's all coming up. Can you hit the quick 6 show horn, please, Director Jordan? And we'll get down to this.
How about that?
I'm going to tell you I'm very excited to interview Iron Mike, but I'm just as excited to have Kelly here. And before we get to point 1, breaking news on this Tuesday, the New York Jets have fired Coach Robert Saleh after the team's 2-3 start in his 4th season. Saleh was 20-36 as coach of the Jets, who are trying to snap the NFL's longest playoff drought at 13 years. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich will act as the interim coach. It's the first time in owner Woody Johnson's 25-year tenure that a head coach has been fired mid-season. So, Rems, you said you're cool talking with some NFL. We're going to get to the Vikings in a second, but this one seemed to shock everybody at 2-3. And my very first thing, the vision that flashed in my mind was Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, but he has publicly called out, not directly, but indirectly called out Robert Saleh the last couple of years with how he does things in New York. And I just felt like this is a case of where the players win again. Aaron Rodgers gets the upper hand. The coach is the one they fire. That's my immediate read. What's your first take on it?
Well, I will say this. I'm not dialed into the New York Jets that much. I'm dialed into the National Football League, more so my own team, the Vikings. But I do know one thing, and you know this, Rod. You've been around many, many years. We could be talking about any sport. We could be talking about hockey. We could be talking about football, baseball, like you name it. There are guys on your roster, no doubt, that carry a lot of clout, that their weight, those franchise type of players, when they speak, people, listen, and owners are sometimes those guys. It's harder to get rid of those guys, or your appetite to want to do so is a lot less than making one quick move and getting rid of the guy that maybe you perceive to be the problem. Maybe you don't. But if the franchise quarterback, has an issue, unless your name is Andy Reid, or unless your name is, Bill Belichick was a guy, but let's be honest, completely different set of circumstances there. I think him and the owner just kind of grew apart. In this particular case, without knowing the specifics, Aaron Rodgers' body language this year hasn't been very good. You could see when he's on the sidelines, he's not happy. His post-game press conferences, you could see that he's frustrated and he's kind of angry. He's kind of ticked off at everything that's going on there. But the fact of the matter is, Aaron Rodgers is really banged up, and it wasn't the coach's fault that he threw 3 terrible interceptions this past week, 2 in the first quarter. I don't think that's ever happened. I don't think that's ever happened in his career before. I think that was an actual first, that he's ever thrown 2 interceptions in the first quarter of a game. So I don't know. There were plays to be made. They're banged up on the offensive line. Their defense has been pretty good. They gave them every opportunity to win that game.
Yeah.
So at 2-3, It surprises me, Rod.
Everybody's surprised. And to be honest, I'm a little disappointed for my New York Jets fan friends. Matthew Barnaby checks into that category. Ryan the Cardinal from upstate New York, who watches here every day. They all thought this was the year. All we were missing was that brilliant quarterback play. And they haven't got that. And yet it's Robert Saleh that gets fired. So I don't think the owner would have consulted with Aaron Rodgers on, hey, what do you think is wrong here? Oh, the coach. Okay, let's fire him. I don't think it went down that way. But I guess they felt 2-3 is unacceptable. Somebody's got to go. It's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. And here we are. Now, trust me, we're getting to opening night of the National Hockey League in a second. But our first point after the breaking news was Monday Night Football. Patrick Mahomes threw for 331 yards. Harrison Butker kicked 4 field goals, and the Kansas City Chiefs improved to 5-0 with a dominating 26-13 NFL victory over the visiting New Orleans Saints, who we thought they were. They've lost 3 in a row, the Saints, after starting the season 2-0. I'm getting a kick out of this, Kelly. Here's the talk in America. Oh, the Chiefs aren't all that. They're 5-0. They're beatable. Every team's beatable. They're 5-0, just like your Vikings. But I'll say this. I had a Kansas City-Detroit Super Bowl. That's what I had. Kansas City, Minnesota Super Bowl, said no one ever.
No.
So are you? How are you? You don't think it's going to happen?
Never.
You're one of the biggest Vikings fans I know.
Well, I think that it's as good a chance as we have had in many, many, many years for something like that to actually happen. I think we're as good as anybody, to be honest with you, in the NFC right now. So I say, why not us? But I was nodding my head this way because I was agreeing with you that there was not one person that was breathing air before the season that thought the Minnesota Vikings might be the best team in the NFC. Not one. And look, here's the thing, Rod. I'm trying to temper my enthusiasm a little bit because let's face it, we are so early on in the season that anything can happen. I remember I don't remember the exact year. It wasn't 2016, although that is the last year that the Vikings went 5-0. But there was a year where I think it was 2002 or 3 or something like that. We were 5-0, and right about after that point, our season we played 500 football for the rest of the way, and we got destroyed in the playoffs back in the Dante Culpepper years. So, we've been there, done that. This team, I do think, is a little bit different, though. First of all, I think that Kevin O'Connell deserves a tremendous amount of credit for bringing this team together, and the organization and giving this team exactly what they needed. They needed help at the linebacker core. They didn't get Kirk Cousins back. They tried to convince him to stay. He didn't want to stay. He was asking just such an insane amount of money that they just said, okay, Atlanta, I mean, as much as we hate to lose you, we're not willing to spend that kind of money. They went out and they got Jonathan Greener. They got Blake Cashman. They got Andrew Van Ginkel. They got Stephen Gilmore. They took what they knew that they needed. They needed another corner. They needed new linebackers. And they got a Brian Flores defense. It's like, who is going to fit into this defense? And they went out and they got the perfect pieces for that defense. So they're not only surprising everybody with what they've been able to do on offense with Sam Darnold, who I think, Rod, you'd have to agree. I mean, there's another one. Raise your hand if you thought that Sam Darnold was going to be as good as he's been. He's been just good enough at managing that offense that he gives him a chance.
Well, hang on. So it says, I had to look this up. I think GMs and owners across the NFL are going to be scrambling to change how they do business, because here's the 5-0 Minnesota Vikings with a quarterback making $10 million. Not the 60 that we're paying Dak in Dallas, or the whatever Mahomes is making 55. Now, mind you, they're 5-0 and Super Bowl champions 2 times over. But you know what I'm saying? If you spend in other areas, it brings the team up. That's the Tom Brady way of thinking. So there's our thoughts on Monday Night Football. By the way, hour 1 of the program brought to you by Culligan. Drink clean, live green. Filter your water for a healthier tomorrow. Culligan, water of Regina. Visit CulliganRegina.com. Speaking of Regina, former Regina Pat, some will say the greatest ever, Connor Bedard, hits the ice tonight with the Chicago Blackhawks at Utah. One of 3 games. Here's the slate. Afternoon game. St. Louis Blues at Seattle, followed by Florida Panthers here in Sunrise against the Panthers, and I'll be going. I can't wait. And then the late game is Chicago at Utah. It's a triple header, all on national television. Our poll question is, what's the game of the night in the National Hockey League? I just told you the sked. My vote is clearly Bruins and Panthers. Kelly, you've known me a long time. All I've ever wanted to do is cover the National Hockey League. It's all I've ever wanted to do. So ask me how excited I am to get into the arena tonight, in the press box at American Bank Arena, and watch the banner go up. Quite a few great storylines here, but that's just me. What's your game of the night, Rems?
Well, I think obviously that one, if you're looking at it through that lens, that's kind of the story for those that dive, right into it. I mean, first of all, you're right. They're going to be hanging the banner. There's the Bruins, I still think, are going to be one of the odds on favorites, are they not? To be right there in the end, and one of those teams that, could potentially win it. They've had the battles over the years. It's a natural game to have the Bruins there for this game. They're rivals. They've played each other in the playoffs in recent years, and there should be a lot of excitement. I mean, I know I'm getting off the subject a little bit here, but here in Canada, Rod, I've been hearing a lot of people talk about that maybe legitimately for the first time in a while, there could be 3 teams. Like if you took your top 5, okay, and the Panthers would be one for sure. 3 of them might be from Canada, with Toronto and the Vancouver Canucks. And I know that everybody thinks that the Edmonton Oilers are going to throw their name in the hat, of course, again, to maybe be that team. You follow it a lot closer than me, and I know you bring me on here to get my thoughts, not me to throw it back at you. But in that neck of the woods there in Florida, does your average hockey fan or your average media type that follows this team every single day, do they see a possible rematch again this year with Edmonton and Florida, or are there other teams that get talked about?
Well, number one, no, they only really follow the Panthers. They kind of keep a little bit of an eye on what the Lightning are doing. But my good friends, they don't watch the rest of the National Hockey League here. That's just the way they are, and I get it. I do. But I saw some previews from the Canadian press that predicted an Edmonton-Toronto Stanley Cup final. So forget about the Florida thing. It's not unheard of. They would go to 3 straight finals. Tampa just did it, 2020 to 2022. So it's not unheard of. And I think they're a good team coming back. But if it was Edmonton, Toronto, that's the one thing I think people oversell is that, America wouldn't watch. Yeah, I think they probably would. Like that Edmonton, Florida Game 7 last year, Kelly, was the second highest Stanley Cup playoff game watched ever. And one half of it was a Canadian market. If it was Oilers Leafs Stanley Cup, I think everybody would watch. I think it's oversold what Americans follow or don't. But in this market, of course, my good friends are hockey fans, so they're all going tonight, but they're not really looking around the NHL like you and I do or Canada does. By the way, from the audience, Wayne in Victoria, BC says, "Hey, Kelly Rempel, what a great guest host, Rod." Well, don't tell me. Put it on producer Clark. He's been tabbed with finding these co-hosts with Moose on holidays. It's all Clark. He's done a great job. Shy writes in, he says, "I love your show. From an old stubble jumper." Thank you, Shy. I'm a stubble jumper myself. Tony in Cochrane, Alberta says, "Kevin Stefanski's next. I don't think Deshaun Watson's the problem. QBR of 8.5 against Washington and 21 for the season so far." BW in Edmonton says, "Love the smooth tones of the Silver Fox. He should meet the Motor City Madmouth. That would be an Emmy award-winning show." The Motor City Madmouth, Kelly, you're too busy to be following this. He is the publisher and owner of the South Florida Tribune, and I'm writing for him, and I brought him in here last week. And there's a reason they call him the Motor City Madmouth. He goes.
I thought you were talking about Ted Nugent.
Yeah, no. I met Ted Nugent in Manhattan one time. Story for another day. Ryan says, "Good day, Rod Squad. Robert Saleh being fired this soon was not on my 2024 NFL bingo card." Yeah, you and me both, brother. I should mention on the Storm front, we are, fingers crossed, from my friends here, not the hockey fan ones, other ones. They say this storm is largely going to miss us. I'm learning, Kelly, the lingo of a tropical storm warning is very similar to a heat warning or a cold warning where you are. It's beware of danger. So what they're saying is the winds could get high enough here to topple a mobile home, break trees, down power lines, but that's not saying it's going to happen. They're saying it could happen.
It could.
So be prepared. Yeah, but that's not where we are yet. And there will be a hockey game played tonight in Sunrise between the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. When we come back, wrestling fans unite, rise up, because we don't talk about it a lot on this program, but we're going to today because Kelly Rempel, the former WWF promoter and manager of Bret Hart, we're going to get into the Mr. McMahon documentary on Netflix. And we'll wind our chat up with the Silver Fox talking about your beloved Rough Riders in the Canadian Football League because we're in the home stretch there. And we have a lot of CFL fan viewers. So we'll be right back. We're live on the Game Plus Television Network, WQEE Radio, streaming live on YouTube, of course, and Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit. As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
The 80s Club, live in Moose Jaw. Honeymoon Suite, along with a flock of seagulls. Men without hats. And spoons. All together for one night at Moose Jaw Event Center, Saturday, November 16th. Tickets on sale now at sastix.ca or the Moose Jaw Event Center box office.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Hey, honey, can you get one of the kids to show me how this Twitter thing works? Honey, I need to get on Instagram. Time for more of the Rod Pedersen Show.
Sports fans, join veteran NHL coach Lorne Mulliken, Rough Riders great Bob Poley, curler Gil Dash, and me at the first ever Wolseley Celebrity Sports Dinner coming up Saturday, October 19th. A night of stories, laughs, and a great dinner benefiting the Wolseley Sportsplex. For tickets, email wolseley.arenaboard@gmail.com. If we can bring the Silver Fox Kelly Rempel back in. Brian in Hudson's Bay writes in on the text line, 902-518-3033. He says, as the kids would say, sweet jacket there, Remps. I'm just passing that along. And here we go, folks. What is that?
The family.
There's kind of a glare on it. Okay.
The family with the kids.
Love it. Okay, Mr. McMahon. Mr. McMahon is a documentary television miniseries that explores the influential yet controversial career of the professional wrestling promoter Vince McMahon. The documentary series features numerous prominent figures from the world of professional wrestling, including Hulk Hogan, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret Hart, Eric Bischoff, and Shane and Stephanie McMahon, Mr. McMahon's children. All 6 episodes of the series were released on September 25th. I burned through them all. I'm sure you did too, Kelly. Which episode was your lovely face shown in? I can't remember. 3, 4, 5?
I think it was number 3, the screw job one.
Right. You were leaning against the wall in the bowels of the Bell Center in Montreal after the biggest backstabbing in the history of pro wrestling.
Right.
Well, first of all,
Yeah.
I guess, what did you think? I loved it. We loved it. And I'll just say this about the wrestling thing. When I first, for episode 1, my heart was like bouncing in the top of my rib cage because it brought me back to my childhood, and I loved it, and it was great. And as the series went along, it kind of reminded me how I got away from it. I started a family, was busy with career, and then the storylines got dumb and weird and just not my thing. You know what I mean? But I was a childhood wrestling fan. And I loved the series. But I wonder about you. Did you feel it was accurate? You know Vince McMahon personally, so what are your thoughts?
Well, you know what, Rod? The only way I can sort of describe that or answer your question is to say that when you're me, and full disclosure, okay, I'm a Bret Hart guy, okay. When I was with the Regina Pats, I brought him in to do an autograph session for the team back in 1993, and we've been very good friends ever since. He stood up with me at my wedding. He's one of my absolute very best dear friends. In fact, I just stayed with him 2 weeks ago for 3 days while I was in Calgary. So it's hard for me to be impartial, and it's hard for me to sort of see the other side, right? So, and I'll be the first to admit that. And I also know the story, and I know the truth. So when you know how one of your best friends to this very day gets tears in his eyes when he thinks about what happened to him all that number of years ago, and you see what it's put him through, and it's hard for me to be objective. So I've never been a big fan of Vince McMahon, the person. I've always been a very big fan of Vince McMahon, the wrestling promoter. Nobody did it better. I mean, as much as I can't stand the guy, and I think he's basically just instrument, I think that he was one of the greatest creative minds, certainly the greatest creative mind in the wrestling business, but you could argue one of the best creative minds and marketing savvy, controversial, who cares what people think? We're selling sizzle here. We're not trying to, send people into outer space or cure cancer. We're putting on a wrestling show. Let's put on a wrestling show and let's entertain people, and let's do things that people are going to love, people are going to hate, but they'll talk about us. So you got to give him credit for what he was really, really, really good at. But the Vince McMahon, the human being, is a piece of shit. So it's difficult for me to. I mean, the cat's out of the bag. Have you saw the lawsuit that he's facing now with all of the, non-disclosure and Janelle Grant that's come out and talked about all of the horrible sex trafficking and all of the things and the different number of ways that you could. I didn't think that there was that many ways that you could violate somebody, and he's done them all. So he's a horrible, rotten human being, terrible. So, but. You got to give him credit for taking wrestling to a galaxy that nobody in a million years ever thought was possible back in the day. I mean, you got to give him credit for for the things he did well, but he's a rotten person, Rod. Terrible.
Oh, I think that's pretty clear. And I'm sitting there wondering if I could have ever worked for him. I don't know. Mandy in Edmonton writes in, she says, McMahon, Bret the Hitman Hart, legend. I remember when I was a kid and a fan of the WWE. Allie in Texarkana just writes a laughing, crying emoji, I think, with what you're saying here. She goes, he isn't wrong. That's from Allie in Texarkana. Trying to keep it together here. I'll be honest, as a guy that works in the recovery field and has a diploma in human behavior, Kelly, I saw those interviews with Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart and all the people, and they were sitting there almost like zombies going, I owe everything I have to Vince McMahon. It's like they were like zombies. They were like his slaves. Like you're interviewing survivors of narcissistic abuse. You know what I mean? I don't know. I saw what they said.
Yeah, I don't think Bret Hart ever said that he owed everything that he ever had to Vince. I think that I think here's the thing, Rod. Here's the takeaway that I take away, and I follow this stuff pretty carefully, is even the wrestlers that he was the most vile to, that he did things to them and treated them with such disrespect and maybe I should only speak for my friend because I can't speak for Hulk Hogan. I don't know Hulk Hogan. I've met him twice. Okay. But Bret Hart's one of my very best friends. Bret will never, to this day, if you sit down and have a beer with him at his bar in Calgary and you ask him, do you respect Vince McMahon as a creative genius? He would probably say yes. He would say that he took him when nobody believed in him, and he saw something in Bret that said, while I'm trying to find my next champion, when I'm trying to find the next Hulk Hogan, that's my guy. And he gave him an opportunity to be a 5-time world champion, and he believed in him. So he's not going to sit there and say that he didn't do anything good for his career. You can't deny that he gave Bret a great opportunity, and Bret to this day is a very wealthy man because of Vince McMahon. But just because you're very good to somebody and you put them on give them an opportunity. Oh, and by the way, Bret took advantage of that opportunity. He gave the same opportunity to lots of guys that fell on their face and they couldn't do it. Right? It's like giving somebody in the NFL a starting quarterback job. You can give them the job, but there's very, very few guys that actually run with it and go on to be Hall of Famers. But the point is that Bret will never, ever deny that Vince gave him those opportunities. And when you go through those wars together and you fight for somebody and you would do anything for them for that long, you do develop a very, very, very close relationship, which is why it's incomprehensible that Vince screwed him the way that he did. And here's the thing that I always find interesting in these documentaries is these stooges that have worked for Vince, these brainwashed, mindless religious robots that just go through their whole life just like
zombies. Yes.
Yeah, they drink the Kool-Aid so much that they conveniently always forget certain things. And we don't need to do a deep dive into the Montreal screw job. But the fact is that when Bret agreed to sign with Vince McMahon, when WCW was offering him twice as much money to leave, literally twice as much. They offered him 2.8, Ted Turner and Eric Bischoff offered him $2.8 million to leave, and he took $1.5 million to stay. Would it Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan or any of those guys take literally 50 cents or 55 cents on the dollar to stay loyal? Nobody would do that. But he did that. And all he asked in return was a number of things. And one of the things that he asked was reasonable creative control in the last 60 days of his contract, which is what Hulk Hogan had in WCW. And basically what that means is that you get to sort of write your own story in your last 60 days with the company. So Vince forfeited his right to be able to tell Bret what to do in his last 60 days because he's the one that agreed to sign him for that. So it pisses me off when people say, well, I should have just done the job. He should have just did what he was told. No. If you're in the NHL and you have a no trade clause in your contract, the owner doesn't just get to trade you. It's in your contract. You signed the contract. If you don't, and so those are the kinds of things that rub me the wrong way, as you can tell. But to get back to your initial thoughts.
No. Can I pause for a sec? Can I pause? Can I pause?
Yeah.
Just for those that have just tuned in. Allie in Texarkana says, happy Tuesday. Weird to walk into wrestling talk. Randy from Winnipeg says, how do you really feel, Kelly? LOL. Randy from Winnipeg says, Crusher, Hitman Hart, Undertaker, my top 3. Kelly is best friends with Bret Hart. You're not saying it. I'm saying it. He was his manager. Kelly was a regional WWF promoter. So that's why we're talking about it here today. Mark in Melford says, Rod, you need to have the Silver Fox on more. He's too busy. This is just the right amount. Kelly's a busy guy. So anyways, I just want to tell people that you have a long-standing history with Bret Hart and Vince McMahon. That's why we got into this. As a matter of fact, I do have another point. You want to finish what you were going to say there? You remember?
Well, the biggest thing that Vince has lied about so many different things over the years that I think he's actually believes that they're true. And I think some of the idiots that he surrounded himself with back in the day, they've convinced themselves that it's true as well. I mean, if you tell the same lie 10,000 times, eventually at some point you actually start to believe that it's true. But I was there. So when people say, was this whole thing a work? Was this whole thing a hoax? Come on. I mean, there's no way that this screw job, this is like these conspiracy theorists. Well, sorry, folks, I was there. Okay. I didn't see the punch, but I was outside the dressing room door and I went for dinner with Brett and his family afterwards. And believe me, nobody's that good an actor. Nobody's going to sit there in front of 4 or 5 people, of which I was one of them, and break down and be sad and emotional because they're in on a conspiracy. I mean, so when people try to mitigate the severity of something like that, and they try to slough it off like, well, it's just Vince being Vince, the Ring Boy scandal. He's still to this day tries to pretend like he absolutely had no idea that any of these sexual assaults were going on. Come on. How can you possibly not? He went on the Phil Donahue show and lied through his teeth that he had absolutely no idea. Wow. When I know for a fact that people were telling him that. It's like he's just a pathological, narcissistic liar. But nobody promoted wrestling better than that guy. So you got to give him credit for that. And nobody's not giving him credit for it. They just think he's an insane pervert who should be in prison. And that's where he belongs, quite frankly.
Mandy in Edmonton says, Kelly, I love it. Love your take. I didn't know you were involved with wrestling. See, that's why we do these things. Leave it to me.
Yeah, just leave Rod in charge. He'll get the guest.
Ryan O'Radio in Atlanta. Ryan O'Radio runs WQEE Radio, where we air daily, Kel, noon to 2 Eastern. Ryan runs the station. He says, proud of the Hitman. He's a big wrestling guy, Ryan O'Radio at WQEE in Atlanta. Just so you know. It took Kelly a while to realize. Remember, he used to come in and say, what are we going to talk about? Junior hockey? And they're not too big on that in Atlanta. But this
we talk about wrestling and the phone and the lights light up when we start talking wrestling. Isn't that crazy?
Well, I knew that it might. Do you have the time, pray tell, to do one more segment with me?
Of course.
Okay, perfect. The Silver Fox and I will return in a moment here on Game Plus Television, WQEE Radio. Oh, Craig's in next? Okay. We'll go back to him.
If you got another
Craig,
guest,
how about that?
No worries.
Okay, no, we do. Craig Custance, my bad. Rems, we'll pick this up another time.
No problem.
My good. Okay, thanks, Clark, for that. Craig Custance from The Athletic joins us. Iron Mike, Keenan, and Serena coming up in hour 2. We got heat today here on Game Plus Television, WQEE Radio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
IKS Game Day wishes to congratulate the City of Estevan and Affinity Place on their brand new center ice display. This state-of-the-art score clock features 5 LED faces with full motion graphics, scoring integration, and our new Halo mounting system. If it's time for an upgrade, let us show you how to deliver the best fan experience. You can find us at IKSGameDay.com.
Now the race is on and here comes pride in the backstretch.
Celebrate 40 years of Sawyer Brown.
Some girls don't like boys like me.
With Shenandoah.
You got to get me to the church on the Cumberland Road.
Plus special guest George Fox. Saturday, October 26th, Moose Jaw Event Center.
I'll take the dirt road.
Tickets are on sale now at the Moose Jaw Event Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
6 days on the road and I'm
Sawyer Brown and Shenandoah live.
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Send us your opinions now. We won't victimize you unless you really deserve it. Now, back to your host, Rod Pedersen.
Sports fans, join the Rod Squad newsletter today. Stay ahead of the game with exclusive insights, updates, contests, and exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up for free today at rodpedersen.com. Well, Craig Custance from The Athletic has a book out, The Franchise, The Business of Building Winning Teams. It's through Simon & Schuster. And Craig, welcome to the RP show today. It's to be honest, it's a bit of a passion of mine, just how teams are constructed. You went so far as to write a book about it. So clearly it's something you're very interested in.
Yeah, first of all, man, I hate to preempt more wrestling talk. That was amazing, and we can dive into that. But I got to say, Rod, I think there's two things that fascinated me about this project. One, at The Athletic, I'm managing a staff now, and so it was an opportunity for me to tap into people that I've been dealing with for years in the hockey world to learn from them, and then kind of pass that knowledge on to others from kind of a leadership perspective. And then I just love, we do a ton of this at The Athletic: roster construction, how are teams built, how are teams put together, what does it take to win? And that's, I would say those are the two kind of combinations I was trying to get at with this book.
Yeah, well, you hear it often. We've wondered it ourselves. You hear fans say it. How come some teams always win and some teams always lose?
Yeah.
You wrote a book on it. Would I be right in, saying it that way?
Yeah, I think what I try to do with this book, and there was spend a lot of time with people from ownership to GMs to team presidents that were at various points in their career. So I mean, there's a couple obvious people. You can get time with somebody like Lou Lamoriello, multiple Stanley Cups. Spent time with him, went out, got a nice Italian dinner, and just really got him outside of the office, outside of the kind of the normal talking points, and dove into his kind of his team building and leadership. And there was some of that strategy, but also it was an opportunity to catch people at different points in their career. So, spent time with Kyle Dubas. One of the things I wanted to do, Rod, was get people in different situations that wasn't, behind a mic or in their office. And in Kyle's case, we went to a bookstore. He's this avid reader who's a kind of a lifelong learner, and just really, we walked through the aisles, and then we sat down and talked and really tried to dive into where he was in that moment in time with Toronto. And even somebody who I believe is going to be a future GM, and Megan Duggan, who works in player development with the Devils. I mean, she's brilliant, did some amazing things in the women's hockey space, and now is kind of an up and comer. So, was really trying to balance, I would say, all the different kind of aspects and also career arcs in that space.
Again, the book is The Franchise, The Business of Building Winning Teams, from Craig Custance through Simon & Schuster. I'm going to read it. But maybe do you want to skip to the end and just tell me what your summation was? I'm dying to know if there's one. I know there is. I know there isn't one blueprint, or everybody would do it, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, I would say if there's a through line, it's really hard and difficult. And I think I would say a common theme that came up a lot was to succeed, you have to make really difficult decisions and do it in real time. And I would say somebody, and we've seen it play out multiple times with the Tampa Bay Lightning and Julien Brisebois. He's a great example of that, where when I was talking to him, he was going through a situation with Ryan McDonough where, ended up moving him to Nashville. There was a possibility of him going on waivers. And Rod, here was a guy that was bleeding for the team, literally. And, they raised the cup, is close with the players in the roster. And here's somebody who had to do something that was pretty cutthroat, right? Like, and I think seen by some as heartless, and you factor in team culture. And if I had to guess, the coaching staff didn't love it. And this happened time and time again. And you saw Julien do it again with Steven Stamkos. Again, really difficult decision to arguably get incrementally better. And each one of these leaders, these owners, had versions of that. George McPhee, if you think of what he's done in Vegas, they overachieve early on and basically rebuilt that roster. And along the way, fired two really good coaches. And George said that was something he learned from Washington, was basically, I'm never going to mess around with the coach. If I see an opportunity to upgrade, I'm going to do it. And these are, Rod, that's hard to do. Like, you're going to get criticized. We talked at times with some of these leaders about the loneliness that's behind it. Like, it's difficult. And I would say that was kind of a common thread.
God. That's why these interviews are great. I'm dying to read this book. Is there a section on listening to the media and the fans?
So kind of, yeah. Literally, there is. Partly because I'm coming through that lens. Lou and I went back and forth a lot. I disagree with how secretive he is at times, and I think it hurts promotion of the game and building it. And obviously, Lou Lamoriello disagrees with that theory, and we went back and forth a little bit there. But I think where it really came to a head, Rod, was talking to Kyle Dubas. I caught him. It's kind of this case study in a moment of time that caught him after they had lost to Montreal in the bubble. And he was facing really difficult decisions about what to do with the core in Toronto. And he reached out to people in hockey. And that's what a lot of these leaders do. They tap in people inside and outside of the sport. Kyle did it. And he relayed this great conversation he had with Brian McClellan, who obviously won a Stanley Cup with the Washington Capitals as their GM, and just said, hey, like, there's a lot of similarities between what we're going through right now in Toronto, what you went through in Washington. How did you handle it? And he said Brian was unbelievable, and gave him this incredible answer. And then when I was like, Kyle, yeah, great, we're writing a book here. What was the answer? And he's like, it was a personal conversation I can't share. So then naturally, like, that's the fun thing about doing a book like this is you can pull on that thread. And I spent some time with Brian, and I went down and talked to Ted Leonsis in DC, and was just like, okay, this is the question. You were faced this in Washington. Why did you do what you did? And to get back at your question, one of the things that Brian said was, you have to remove the noise. You can't listen to the media. You can't listen to the fans. I mean, if you think of how many times they wanted, people to blow it up in Washington and trade Alex Ovechkin, trade whoever before they won a cup, like that was the criticism you were hearing. And I would take it a step further. When you talk to people in the Capitals organization, they said sometimes you can't listen to the players. Like, you do these exit interviews, and they gave some really good examples of players that wanted drastic change, and you're catching them in like the heat of the moment when they're really disappointed coming off a playoff loss. There's a ton of emotions. And so he's like, you can't even listen to the players at times.
That's why I often say, don't ever listen to, I've had so many friends retire in the football realm at their news conference right after the game. I'm like, give the guy a week, Give it a week. Well, I'm going to watch a Stanley Cup banner go up tonight at American Bank Arena here in Sunrise. And, Bill Zito could fill a book, but there's probably, I would hope, you talk about the pressure of the markets. 5 straight Stanley Cup finals have been waged in the state of Florida, and you look at what Bill Zito is like, there's not pressure here. Zito would argue, but it ain't like Toronto. It ain't like Calgary or Winnipeg, and Bill fired a coach, Bill Zito, fired Andrew Burnett after winning the President's Trophy. And I don't even know why he did, but he felt he needed to do it. So, yeah, sounds like a fascinating book, Craig. I can't wait to get my hands on it, and I know our viewers will too. The franchise, The Business of Building Winning Teams, from Simon & Schuster. Where can people get it?
Anywhere. Bookstores, Amazon, just the library. I just want people, like, there's so much insight from these people. And honestly, Rod, you mentioned Bill Zito. One of my regrets was not getting him in. Like, we talk a lot. He is a fascinating leader in hockey. Gave up a lot to pursue his kind of dream of winning a Stanley Cup in terms of giving up his agency. And he's an amazing story in Florida.
Your next book. Get him in your next book. And Craig, by the way, I have friends that say down here, where can I get quality hockey coverage? Well, a lot in Canada, but a lot in the States too. And I say The Athletic, pay the dough because it's worth it. I'm a career media guy. It's worth something. I love it. I love it. Okay, Craig, thanks for the time. Good luck with the book, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Rod.
Craig Custance from The Athletic, and his new book is out, The Franchise. We got a sports update coming up. Next hour, Serena Taylor and Iron Mike Keenan. He's got a book out, too. I feel like your Christmas holidays are being planned here today. We're live on Game Plus television across Canada and 31 U.S. states. WQEE Radio in Atlanta. Streaming live on YouTube, of course, and Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Business owners and marketers, Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with The Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Did you know you can catch all the best moments from the show on all our social media platforms? Now, back to the studio with Rod.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Man, it's been a fun show, hasn't it? I had to apologize to Rems. Got carried away on the wrestling chat because the Craig Custance interview was tremendous, too. It's just you and me here now for a bit. Serena Taylor to kick off hour 2, and then Iron Mike Keenan. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'll tell Mike Keenan this when he joins us. I don't have a problem with the guy. I don't really understand why so many people do. I might ask him that. I know a lot of guys that have played for him, and they don't have any problem with him. I'm living here in South Florida. He coached the Panthers 20 years ago. They don't say anything bad about the guy. I don't get it. Iron Mike. He's coming up in hour 2, and he's got a new book out, Iron Mike, My Life Behind the Bench. Funny how these always come out just before Christmas. 902-518-3033 to reach us here in the studio, the South Florida studio, which, by the way, it's been a godsend to come inside and do the show from a studio. I'm sure our producers and directors are very happy. Not outside, blowing away in a storm in my backyard or at Johnny O's. As much fun as it was, or at least I feel safe in here. And the power, by the way, do we have a plan if the power goes out tomorrow?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, we might want to get on that in the next 24 hours. Baseball. As much as Gary in Penticton, Gary with 2 R's, doesn't want us talking baseball. He let us know that yesterday. I'm watching the games and loving them. The Kansas City Royals scored 4 times in the 4th inning, including a solo home run from catcher Salvador Perez, and then hung on to beat the New York Yankees 4-2 to tie up their American League Division Series at a game each last night. Oh, yeah, Bob Costas was calling the game. What a nice treat that was to tune it on and have old Blue Eyes calling the game on TNT. Game 3 Wednesday at Kauffman Stadium in KC. Meanwhile, Kerry Carpenter hit a 3-run home run with 2 outs in the 9th inning off all-star closer Emmanuel Clase, and the visiting Detroit Tigers stunned the Cleveland Guardians 3-0 Monday night to tie up that American League Division Series 1 each. Tigers out-hit the Guardians 9-3, and Game 3 in that series goes Wednesday in Detroit. The sports update brought to you by Landmark Cinemas. In Landmark Cinemas now, Joker. I'm going to it, just not today. From acclaimed writer-director Todd Phillips comes Joker, Folie à Deux, the much-anticipated follow-up to 2019's Academy Award-winning Joker, which earned more than $1 billion at the global box office and remains the highest-grossing R-rated film of all time. In theaters now, Joker, Folie à Deux. The other night, the original Joker was on, the one from 2019, it was on cable. I forgot how disturbing it was. Mark in Melfort says, hey, Rod, have you seen the Panthers Stanley Cup rings yet? Yes, they unveiled them last night. And if you go to Cats and Bolts on Twitter, Mark, my account there, or Instagram, Cats and Bolts podcast, video, photos are there. They're nice. Very nice. Brent in Wellington, Florida says, looking forward to Iron Mike, old school hockey guy. Utah Darren writes and he says, NHL in Utah tonight and not a ticket to be found. We'll have to watch on TV. That's our poll question. What's the game of the night in the National Hockey League? Last I looked, literally 0 votes for the Blues and the Kraken. Why even play the game? And it's like roughly split between the one that I'll be at, Panthers and Bruins, and then Connor Bedard and the Blackhawks at Utah. We'll talk about all this, maybe a little wrestling too, next hour, and Iron Mike coming up.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
IKS Game Day wishes to congratulate the city of Estevan and Affinity Place on their brand new center ice display. This state-of-the-art score clock features 5 LED faces with full motion graphics, scoring integration, and our new halo mounting system. If it's time for an upgrade, let us show you how to deliver the best fan experience. You can find us at iksgameday.com.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with The Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
It's like Ravine, the famed illusionist. He would hypnotize the whole crowd. My dad always told this joke. He goes, oh, yeah. Ravine was performing at the Center of the Arts. He had the whole room hypnotized. And he said, the next thing I say, you will all do. And he got tripped up, tangled in his mic cord and tripped and went, crap. Took him 2 weeks to get the smell out.
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
Yes, a Jim Pedersen Story 101. Welcome, everybody, to Hour 2 of your favorite daytime sports talk show. We're live on the Game Plus television network across Canada and 31 U.S. states on the radio in Atlanta, WQEE. Very big day, opening night of the National Hockey League in North America. And we've had some wrestling talk here, maybe mosey into some baseball, and Iron Mike Keenan coming up in segment 2 after the beautiful and talented Serena Taylor. Welcome, Serena. And by the way, I asked people on Twitter for questions for Iron Mike, and they filled up my phone. So we're good for questions for Iron Mike for our audience. Serena, hey, happy opening day. Oilers not playing, though. You excited?
Yeah, I'm still a little bit on edge. I'm still a little scarred from last year. I'm not rushing to watch an Oiler game this year, but of course, I'm going to.
Well, hey, the poll question, I should just point this out before we get into all the more serious topics, although what more is serious than this? 3 games today. What's the game of the night? Blues at Kraken, the first game. Bruins at Panthers here, and Blackhawks at Utah. Well, who are you voting for the game of the night?
It's going to have to be Florida and Boston. Not only are they two strong teams that are playing, there's always tension between those teams. Pretty much, I think every team that Boston plays, there's some tension. But I would say that's definitely the game of the night for a variety of reasons. Everybody wants to see the Stanley Cup champions. Well, their fans do. Boston obviously isn't going to want to. But that's definitely an important game, I think. There's so many games in a season that you can't really say anything's going to set the tone. But I think that if that game specifically is a banger like we think it might be, that could set the tone for both the teams this season.
Your fan club has shown up. Allie in Texarkana writes in. She says, "Hey, Serena, so good to see you." Mandy in Edmonton says, "Hi, Serena, good to see you. How are you?" Can I just piggyback on that? And before we get into the hockey talk, and I want to talk about your Oilers, can you explain to everybody the storm situation here in South Florida, what you know of it? Because I'm kind of following your lead. A lot of people are wondering why would the Panthers cancel their ring ceremony last night, yet 2 nights before the storm's supposed to hit, yet play a game 24 hours later. Can you explain what's going on with Hurricane Milton around here?
I'm not really sure why they would cancel it. You'd have to ask them. I have absolutely no idea. There are a lot of reasons, like schools being closed. They will close schools in advance. So the majority of the schools around here are closed Wednesday and Thursday. A lot of the reasons are, number one, it's dangerous for kids to be outside. And number two, a lot of places use the schools as shelters. So they'll shut down in advance, not really knowing what's going on. Now, here, we're not in a direct hit. As far as I know, and as far as it sits right now, we are in the path, but we are not in the cone. So what that means is we're not going to get the dangerous part. That's going in kind of the middle part of Florida and going across. Unfortunately, Tampa is probably going to get hit pretty bad. There's a lot of people evacuating out of Tampa, a lot of people coming over here to the East Coast where we are, because it will be a lot safer. But at the end of the day, you just never know what's going to happen. So everybody's taking precautions. I'm trying not to eat the hurricane snacks. Everything's fine so far.
One more from Mandy in Edmonton. She says, "Serena, you look beautiful. Love your hair." She's an Edmonton gal. So I'm just passing this along. We should just start with the Oilers. An hour ago, the Silver Fox, Kelly Rempel, was on here saying that the word in Canada is that there's 3 really strong Canadian contenders to win the Stanley Cup: Oilers, Leafs, Canucks. How are you feeling here about the Oilers' chances to get back to the Stanley Cup final and win it, and their off-season moves? How are you feeling about the Oil?
Well, as far as the Oilers are concerned, it is what it is. I'm confident in the strength of the Oilers. And probably, last year I was one of the only people that I know, because there's not a lot of Oilers fans around here, but everybody was quick to jump all over the Oilers and crap on their defense, and they have terrible this and this and that. And honestly, I think they probably played stronger to their experience and their talent than the Panthers did in the finals. And so many people were quick to carve Edmonton. They were going to lose to Vancouver. They were going to lose to Dallas. They were going to lose. They didn't. And they deserve to win every one of those series. So I'm confident in the team that they have. They made some really good offseason acquisitions. There were guys that I think were fan favorites that the Oilers lost. Those are always tough. You have guys like Warren Foegele that work so hard. It just is what it is. It's part of it. It's a business, but to say that there's 3 strong teams in Canada that are, come on. Like, everybody thought Vancouver was going to do something last year. Everybody thinks Toronto's going to do something every year, and it just doesn't happen. So only time will tell. Everybody counted the Oilers out a month into the season, 2 months into the season, but I knew they were strong enough. It was tough, but I never really ever thought Vancouver was ever going to go anywhere. They have a strong team, and they were impressive in the regular season, but they did what they do, and they lost in the playoffs.
Well, you mentioned the Oilers struggling off the start last year. They did fire a coach, right? So they were the first coach firing. I'd love to know who the first coach firing will be this year. I haven't seen the odds yet. 902-518-3033. The text line here. Jen from the Four Seasons writes in and says, I'm still worried about our blue line. Tony from Cochrane, Alberta says, sorry, Serena, not a lot of Oilers fans around here either. Ha ha. West of Calgary. Arlen Bruce III writes in. He says, great morning, Serena and RP. Ms. Serena, you look like a 5-time WWE Women's Champion. Wow, great look. Go Oilers and Canucks. AB, we're going to get to wrestling talk in a second because Serena and I burned through the Vince McMahon documentary. And Kelly Rempel had some strong thoughts last hour. You were working, but he first called Vince McMahon excrement. He used that term. And then he actually used the slang, the dirty word for that. He does not like Vince McMahon as a close friend of Bret Hart's. RJ's watching in Wellington, Florida, and says he's sending RJ to our house for the next 3 days.
Oh, Brent's watching.
Yeah. His kid's out of school, so he's sending him to our house for 3 days. Well, he'll be on his own. Utah. I was reading. So what do you think about this? So they're home tonight to Chicago. Read an article this morning on Connor Bedard and how they're going to be better. How much better? I don't know. I still have Utah to be last place in the Central Division because they're still the Arizona Coyotes. But do you think a change of scenery will make, getting out of that depressed Arizona market into, sounds like a real good vibe and positive buzz in Salt Lake City? Is that enough to get him into the playoffs, do you think?
Not right away. No, absolutely
no, I mean
not.
This year.
Chicago's... No, not this year, maybe not even next year. It's hard to say. I really don't think that it's going to be the same as like Vegas because they moved, right? It's a different team. It's a new franchise in a fresh place, but it's the same team. You know what I'm saying? Vegas was all brand new. So that's different. They get to draft guys. It's a completely different vibe. Seattle, all those things, but it's going to take time to build up. I think that I would not have pictured Salt Lake City to be a hockey hotbed, but what do I know? We live in Florida where there's 2 teams. Never would have seen that coming. Also, not the most popular teams in the league overall, but regardless, there's 2 teams here. But I think that'll be a good start for them to get it going with that matchup tonight. That's going to be a good thing for their fans to see. It'll be interesting to see what kind of fan base they have there.
Well, it's sold out, obviously. I think it's going to be a heck of a hockey game, but they're extremely young. I was listening to NHL radio this morning, Gord Stellick saying that. They're too young. They're not all that, Utah, but God bless them. Hope that first year in Salt Lake City goes well. And they may have that original Vegas Golden Knight feeling, although they're not an expansion team. We're the first team in Utah ever. That misfit thing that worked so well for the Golden Knights, because who was Jonathan Marchessault back then? Derek England and these guys. They were nobodies, and went all the way to the Stanley Cup final. That was pretty remarkable. We don't expect that for Utah, but we hope for it. By the way, Mike Keenan coming up next, Iron Mike Keenan. He's got a book out called Iron Mike, My Life Behind the Bench. I'm just interested to play word association with you. What do you think of Iron Mike?
Oh, let's pray to God he's not logged in yet. But it comes, no, but seriously, it goes back to junior. It goes back to the rumors of him throwing games at the Memorial Cup. I don't know if it's true or not. I just have these things, and I don't care, whatever. But more so, being an Oilers fan and having him coach the Flyers, that was where there was always that. I will never pull for anybody that played or coached the Flyers, and same thing for Calgary. I just won't, I can't do it. I view Philadelphia almost the same as I view the Flames. So it's more because of that. I mean, I don't know if he'll speak to the Memorial Cup thing. Of course, he's probably going to say what he's going to say, and he's probably beaten it to death and is sick of talking about it. But I just because he was a Flyer, it was so hard. I mean, granted, Edmonton ended up going on to win in the finals when they played them in 87. I think it was 87 or 88 that they beat Philly. So 87. So
they also went to the Stanley Cup in 85 against the Oilers. Sorry to cut you off, but they went twice. They played with Mike Keenan on the bench. The Philadelphia Flyers.
So it's just it's just because of that, I would say. You know, it's just one of those things, like, he, respect-wise, he got a lot out of his players. He got a lot out of his teams. And I feel like we don't really have a lot of coaches like that anymore. A guy like Mike Keenan is not your typical John Cooper. He's certainly not your John Tortorella. He's not your Paul Maurice. Maybe more of a Paul Maurice than anything else. But sure, he got excited, but he wasn't a Terry Crisp kind of guy. And he got a lot out of his players because I think he garnered respect by being a respectful human being. That's where a lot of coaches lose me, when they make excuses in the post-game interviews. You didn't hear coaches do that back then. Mike Keenan never did that. Guys do it every day now, making excuses for one thing or another, talking about how they just lost, but they were the better team and the stats are this and that. Guys like Mike Keenan aren't like that. He's going to stand up, he's going to take it on the chin, and it is what it is.
That's why I respect the hell out of him. And so, listen, people, you're all seeing why Serena and my hockey podcast, the Cats and Bolts podcast, won an award for the fastest growing podcast in Florida, because this is what it's like. I don't agree with hardly any of what she just said. You said you don't like him because he coached the Flyers. So basically, which is fine, but that's not it's not personal.
No, like it just
right, exactly. So it's not yet. Yeah, but Jeff, the Stamps fan, writes it. He says Mike Keenan, the biggest jerk in hockey, is coming on. See, but that's typical, you know. And it started in the Memorial Cup, which, by the way, I'm not going to get into all this with Iron Mike. It's kind of why I asked you now. It was my first recollection of junior hockey. Period. I was there. My dad took me. I was 7, and I remember. I was 7, trying to get my mind around why the whole place was booing Mike Keenan and throwing eggs on the ice and having. I was 7, and I'm not going to ask him about it. And from what I understand, he doesn't address it in his book. He did go on a Regina radio station last week, and I'm not going to ask. Like you just said, he's tired of talking about it. I am not going to ask him about the 1980 Memorial Cup because, Serena, you can appreciate this. You told me this last week about something else. It's in the past. So I don't care.
We don't need to know.
Care.
We don't need to know the answer. It doesn't matter.
No. So that's my point on Iron Mike. And the other thing is, I know a lot of guys that have played for him. They don't have a problem with him. Won the Stanley Cup in 1994. Nick Kyprios thinks he walks on water. And as you know, we both live here in South Florida. He coached the Panthers 20 years ago. You don't ever hear a bad word about Mike Keenan, period, from anybody around it. Not at all.
Think about the thing with Mike Keenan when he was coaching the Flyers. He was with them for years. Pretty much almost all the same players were there. That's why teams were successful. And that's why, as a coach, when you're working with the same players year after year after year after year, everybody talks about Connor McDavid bringing all of his friends in. There's a reason that works, because when you have that type of chemistry and that relationship that is proven to be successful, why would you cut that up? Go back to the 80s Oilers and the Flyers and the Flames and the Habs. Everybody had the same team for 5-6 years. Barely anyone got traded. Now, if you keep your top 2 lines in the offseason, it's shocking. So it gave Mike Keenan, for example, in this example, an opportunity to build a relationship with his players, learn how they tick, and as a good coach, use that effectively. Now I don't think guys have the opportunity to do that from a coaching standpoint.
No, but Mike Keenan, I'll just say it now, from Bowmanville, Ontario, took the Flyers in his first season to the Stanley Cup, won the Jack Adams Trophy as Coach of the Year, won a Stanley Cup. I got nothing but respect for the guy, and he's coming up next. Thank you for all the wonderful comments to and about Serena. We've kind of run out of time with her, but Serena, thanks for the time. Have a great afternoon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Iron Mike is coming up next. We're live on the Game Plus television network across Canada and airing in 31 U.S. states, including here in the beautiful state of Florida. We're on the radio in Atlanta, WQEE 99.1 FM, streaming live on YouTube, and, of course, Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
The 80s Club, live in Moose Jaw. Honeymoon Suite, along with a flock of seagulls. Men Without Hats. And Spoons. All together for one night at Moose Jaw Event Center, Saturday, November 16th. Tickets on sale now at sasktix.ca or the Moose Jaw Event Center box office.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Send us your opinions now. We won't victimize you unless you really deserve it. Now, back to your host, Rod Pedersen.
RP Show is brought to you in part by Seat Giant. Stop paying U.S. dollars for games and concerts. Canadian-owned and operated with Canadians in mind. Super Bowl, college football, Taylor Swift, Justin Timberlake. They've got it all. Use the promo code RP Show for 15% off now. Check us out at seatgiant.ca. Well, it is a true pleasure to welcome Iron Mike Keenan to the RP Show for the very first time. He's got a book out, Iron Mike, My Life Behind the Bench with Penguin Random. Coach, welcome to the RP Show. I got to say, I put out on social media that you were coming on. I asked for some questions, and your name elicits quite a response. Why do you think that is, Coach?
Because I've had a lot of stops along the way in very many locations in many countries.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a longtime fan, and I was there in 1980, 7 years old. My dad took me. My first real recollection of junior hockey, and I'm not going to go down that road. I respect your body of work, Coach. I do. And to be honest, since I started following you in 1980, I feel like I watched this story play out. So what's in this book that I might not know? You know?
I'd have to ask you how how diligently have you followed my career? How much you know about my career before I could say how much you wouldn't know. So you followed
I think
from Peterborough,
yeah,
and through the
yeah.
NHL. You
I'm
probably
just saying I saw you on the
wouldn't
bench.
know. You probably wouldn't know a lot about Russia or China or Italy.
No.
You probably wouldn't know a lot of the backstories about various NHL stops. So, from Peterborough, I go to Rochester. We won a championship there. I was signed with the Buffalo Sabres, Scotty Bowman, and then back to the University of Toronto, win a championship there. Then on to the NHL, 84, 85, my first year with Philadelphia Flyers. I'm there, and then till 88, one Canada Cup, 87, and then Chicago for 4 years there. And then in that time frame as well, another Canada Cup, 91. And from there to New York to win the Cup in New York. And then following that, various stops along the way, including a Cup in the KHL in Russia.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I kind of facetiously asked that question. I only saw you on the bench, right? But that wonderful documentary, was it Mario, Mike, and the Great Gretzky? I just loved it. I loved it. The Canada Cup in 87. I mean, I would assume this book is not like a lot of behind-the-scenes stories, but is there a little bit of getting things off your chest that you've been wanting to say for years?
Not really. I was really reluctant to write it. And the question always comes up, how would you do it differently, or what do you regret? And my response is I would follow the principles of what I outlined as a coaching direction for my career. And I would, if I had some regrets, and I certainly do, I would change the methodology a little bit. I could, and over a course of time, I did. I coached in 5 decades and won in all decades. But the methodology you use in 1984 or in Peterborough in 79 or up through Rochester and so on changes over time. And you win a cup, and now 2014, the KHL, my first year, and subsequently after that, your methodology changed. And of course, I had to change in Russia because I lived in the Ural Mountains. Nobody could speak English. About 5 of the 25 hockey players understood any English. So I had to learn enough Russian to give them commands and to navigate myself through, to go grocery shopping or to even go buy dinner at a restaurant. So it's an ongoing process for the coach as well to adapt to new generations, different thinking, new approaches. But I would say that at the beginning, I probably was ahead of the curve in terms of preparation and having teams ready to win.
Yeah, well, that's why lifelong learning. I mean, if anybody thinks we stop learning, that's when it's time to die. But, Coach, I was the voice of the Regina Pats for 20 years. So when you go back to the Peterborough thing, like, I get it, but it's in the past. I don't care. I know players that have played for you that think you walk on water. I just feel like you're misunderstood. Somebody wrote in here and said the biggest jerk in hockey. I'm like, why would you say that? I mean, that's why I talk about your name eliciting reaction. I just wonder if you felt misunderstood, or did they have it right? I don't know. That's why I was looking forward to talking to you today.
I don't think many people saw the underlying essence of my coaching ability or skill or my being. They saw a lot of superficial media headlines. It's even more profound now, but a lot of publicity that was generated through my own actions, but it was on the surface of what the intent was most of the time.
Well, you mentioned being ahead of the curve. You won a championship in the American Hockey League and to the Stanley Cup in your first year in Philly. What do you attribute that to?
Well, first of all, you have to have great players, and you have to have coachable players. You have to have players that buy into the team concept, that are willing and prepared to play their role, to be a part of the team and the assignments that they're given, to be playing for each other as well as playing for themselves and their families, but also because that's their profession, that's their income. But they have to understand that this is, in my opinion, the ultimate team game. It's the most dynamic game. It's not like baseball, football, basketball. As an example, you can run out of bounds. There's no out of bounds. There's nowhere to hide. The only exit is to the bench and penalty box. And I think because of the dynamics, you're going 25, 30 miles an hour. It's like being hit by a Volkswagen sometimes. If I could draw the analogy to a car accident, you got a club in your hand that you could really injure someone very badly or quickly. So there's a lot of dynamics in this game of hockey that the other sports don't have. And I think we're attracted to it. It's something that Canada loves, Russia loves, America's learning to love more. And 50 countries now play hockey throughout. And when you see it live, the intensity and the speed of the game, the athleticism, to be an excellent hockey player, you have to be an exceptional athlete. And to deal with the interactions of team play, and you have 20 teammates that have to put it all together all at once for long periods of time over several months. It's challenging but fun.
Well, you'd be back to the start of that answer. I asked Wally Buono, the CFL's all-time winningest coach, what was the secret to his success? Same answer. Great players. Good players, great players. Same as you. And speaking of cross sports, Derek Keenan, I have interviewed multiple times. Living legend in the National Lacrosse League. He keeps trying to retire, and they won't let him. He's a winner, like yourself. You guys are cousins, right? Can you speak a little bit about Derek? I love Derek.
Yeah, that's correct. Relationship in the family, Keenan. And lacrosse was big in Whitby and Oshawa. I played box lacrosse. In fact, few people know this, and that would be one thing they wouldn't know. The first team I ever coached was box lacrosse. I played lacrosse in Whitby as well. And then I went to Don Mills Collegiate, and they asked if I would coach the lacrosse team. I said, sure. So we won a championship in North York. And so that's where the Keenan family is connected to lacrosse, from the Brooklyn Redmen to the Oshawa Green Gales. Lacrosse in Whitby, Oshawa, Brooklyn area was big when I was growing up and when Derek was growing up. So that's the relationship there in terms of that sport.
Well, yeah, you don't look a ton alike, but you both have that steely glare. There's no doubt about that. Brent in Wellington, Florida writes in and says, hockey guy through and through. Huge fan, Mike. Can't wait to read the book, which I should mention, I'm in Boca Raton, going to the game tonight, Panthers and Bruins. 20 years ago, you coached this franchise. Mike, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your time with the Panthers and what you remember about that time.
Well, when I came to the Panthers as the coach, Pavel Bure was instrumental. He went to Alan Cullen, who owned the team, and said, I want Mike Keenan to be our coach. Now, Dwayne Sutter was coaching, and I have a lot of respect for Dwayne. But coaching, and I asked Alan what the budget would be, and he said at that time $60 million. I said, well, that's really respectable, because it fits in with the possibility of succeeding with good players. And then the franchise wasn't drawing much, and he reduced the budget significantly in half, and asked me to trade Pavel. I said, he's our best player by far. But we traded and really didn't have a very good team at that point. And then we went through the gyrations of Roberto Luongo and his agent and Alan meeting and Roberto, and they set a bar at $35 million, and Alan wanted to give him $30 million. I said to Roberto, give the guy a chance. He hasn't had a playoff game yet, so that revenue is not there, but he's willing to give you. And then you have to remember, living in Florida, there's a discount because of the American tax structure. So anyway, the long and the short is we move, and you'll read about that in the book as well, but we move Roberto. But then I come back as the manager. Rick Dudley was dismissed, and Alan brought me back as a manager. Jacques Martin was the coach. And then our budget was tight again. We had to navigate a team in an environment. There was still a lot of payrolls that were much higher than ours, and then I got dismissed from there. So I'm glad and I'm happy for Florida that they won this Stanley Cup. Paul Maurice is a friend, and he kind of took the team back in time a little bit to a style of game, or a physical game, a rugged game, a competitive team. Young Taychuk probably set the table as one of the group, one of the team members that was willing to buy into Paul's ideas about how we should play to succeed, and how intense it became. And the league today is not quite or sort of strayed away from that, but winning the Stanley Cup as Florida did, it's a monkey see, monkey do business to a certain extent. A lot of teams will, I think, revert back to the little bit more old stuff. If you watch our teams and the way we played, and I'll go back to the '94 Cup, the Game 7 against Vancouver was vicious, absolutely vicious. There could have been penalties called every shift, but that was the competitive nature of the game at that time. Is extremely physical. So I'm happy to see that Florida found a way to integrate that aspect. I thought we were losing it in the game. I'm glad it's back in the game, because I think it's part of the game. It's part of the courage that players have to play the game of hockey, and to have it be successful. I'm encouraged by the results of the Florida Panthers winning this year.
Well said. Then they are vicious. They made moves to get vicious, and I like that. And I just want to say, Coach, we're out of time, but I want to leave you with this. I respect the hell out of you. I'm serious. And a lot of my friends, like Jeff Chikrin, played for you. The Sutters, Nick Kyprios, think the world of you. So, man, congrats on a great career. Yeah, and I can't wait to get my hands on this book. Thanks for all you've done for the game, and continued success in life.
We'll see you in Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Iron Mike Keenan. Well, that sounds to me like opening the door to him coming into the studio of our Cats and Bolts podcast. Hey, Mike, let's get that happening. We are in Boca Raton, and we'll be right back here on the RP Show with a sports update and viewer takeover. 902-518-3033, the number to reach me. All topics on the table the rest of the way. Live here on Game Plus Television, WQEE 99.1 FM radio, streaming live on YouTube, and, of course, Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
Oh, yeah, he's back. Time for more of the Rod Pedersen Show.
All right, everybody, welcome back. And I want to say thank you, Clark, for lining up Iron Mike Keenan. That was a thrill for me. Mandy in Edmonton writes it, and she says, oh, wow, that was amazing. I think it was amazing. And after a few little rough bumps at the start, we got over it. And it's my own fault. You weren't watching the start of that interview with Iron Mike Keenan. I said, what's in that book that I don't know? I watched your whole career. And he's like, well, what do you know? It reminds me of when I wrote my Rider book back in 2008. Yeah, well, back in 2008 when I wrote my best-selling book on the Rough Riders. Not a big deal. I was on Off the Record, and Michael Landsberg, he intentionally put me on my heels and made me uncomfortable, Michael Landsberg, by saying, oh, you wrote a book on the 07 Rider Grey Cup. What's the story you left out? Of course, this is live on TSN, national television, although I guess we're national television, but total. It sent the interview. And this threatened to do the same. It was not my point. But we started to get along near the end. Did you see that? Because if there's one thing that I know, it's crusty old hockey coaches. Mandy says, awesome, Rod. That was a great interview and lots of respect for Iron Mike. That's my point. You get fired a few times, and trust me, I have. You start to think everybody hates you. And I wanted to point out to Mike, no, not everybody does. As a matter of fact, I don't know anybody who does hate him, other than maybe media. But just wanted to give him the chance to get some stuff off his chest there, and I feel like we did. Great year-end interview there. We'll write it down. I guess we could do a sports update here. Although he said, see you in Florida, didn't he? Didn't he say, see you in Florida? Which is a whole other thing. I got to find out where he is. I feel like we might be hanging out at the Yard House before long. Hurricane Milton is approaching the state of Florida. I don't think it's hit Tampa Bay yet. Just so everybody knows. So many have asked, what's our situation here where we are in South Florida? The Panthers are playing the Bruins tonight. There's no threat of this game not being played. I'm talking to veteran people that have lived here a lot longer than me, and they're saying it looks like there's just the tail end of this thing. The outside is going to hit us, just high winds and rain, but nothing crazy like what the eye of the hurricane, the cone, I think they say. And people go, why do you live there? Because it's so awesome the rest of the time that it's worth this. I'm only speaking for myself. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm told we're going to be safe. But over in Tampa Bay, it's going to hit them. They're sitting there naked, from what I not literally. A sitting duck is what they say Tampa is for the trajectory of this hurricane. That's why everybody's getting out of Tampa. We're on the whole other side of the state. Is the point. It's supposedly going to miss us. So there you go. Is Keenan here or not? I'm not sure. A sports update here. The National Hockey League's regular season kicks off tonight in North America with 3 games. The Utah Hockey Club, formerly the Arizona Coyotes, plays its first game in Salt Lake City, hosting the Chicago Blackhawks. Meanwhile, the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers welcome the Boston Bruins, and the St. Louis Blues visit the Seattle Kraken. The Buffalo Sabres and New Jersey Devils opened the season in Prague over the weekend, and the Devils swept those 2 games, which people are already writing off the Sabres, including people I know and respect, like Matthew Barnaby, which I guess, speaking of Barney, his New York Jets fired Robert Saleh, their head coach, today amid a 2-3 start. I believe I read on the weekend the odds-on favorite to be the first coach fired, I think, was Doug Pedersen with the Jaguars. I read it on this show. Nobody had Saleh number 1, I'll tell you that. 6 of Canada's 7 NHL teams will be in action Wednesday night. The Montreal Canadiens and Toronto Maple Leafs will renew their original 6 rivalry at Bell Center. The Calgary Flames visit the Vancouver Canucks, and the Edmonton Oilers host the Winnipeg Jets. The Ottawa Senators will open their season Thursday against the visiting Florida Panthers. Major League Baseball playoffs continue tonight with the San Diego Padres and New York Mets both aiming to take 2-1 leads in their best-of-5 National League Division Series. The Padres are coming off a 10-2 win over the Dodgers on Sunday, while the Mets dropped a 7-6 decision to the Philadelphia Phillies in their last game. This sports update is brought to you by Landmark Cinemas. Get more of what you love with Landmark Extras. It's their reward program. Free movies and concession items, invitations to exclusive screenings, special events, and more. There are 3 rewarding programs to choose from that get you something extra with every movie you purchase you make. Check out landmarkcinemas.com to register for free today. And also brought to you by EMJ Marketing. Connect with thought leaders and industry experts through EMJ Marketing Speakers Bureau, emjmarketing.com. In retrospect, this is on me. It's on me. I asked the viewers for questions for Iron Mike, and then I didn't ask any of them. And to be honest, there were some good ones here. Let's go look. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-boom. Trent Fraser, the almighty TF, says, how much impact did the captaincy role of Mark Messier have in the 94 Grey Cup? Follow-up, is there anyone in today's game that reminds him of Mark Messier? Didn't get to that. Oops. Todd in Winnipeg says, the most interesting coach in hockey. That's the thing I was trying to get to with Mike. I mention your name and people lose their buckets. Why? What's this dude? Oh, J16. Thoughts on the 07-08 Flames? From the best damn referee in all of his years of coaching. What city, which arena, which team was the toughest to be prepared for in his long, illustrious career? Secondly, what was the lamest question asked by the media? Kudos to a great career. I didn't ask any of these. And I want to point this out. There aren't a lot of people that have spent more time with the Regina Pats than me. 20 years. 15 in the radio booth, 5 in the television booth. And just why this keeps coming up with the Regina Pats, 1980 Memorial Cup. Keenan comes in there as the 28-year-old coach of the Peterborough Petes. And via the round robin, it would have been favorable for the Petes to lose this one particular game, and it hurt the Pats. The problem is they tried to throw it, and I don't know how the hell it worked, but it didn't work out for them. It would have worked out better for the Pats, and Pats fans have never forgiven him. And you'd think I would be mad, but as I've spent thousands of dollars on my spiritual life coach here in South Florida, she's like, you need to release the anger of everything. It was 1980. Who cares? Let's move on. 902-518-3033. Overtime's coming up. You can write in on the YouTube feed as well. Give us a like, for the love of God, if you're watching on YouTube right now. Whatever you want to talk about. Oh, yes, Rhino Radio pointing out the Jets have fired head coach Robert Saleh. We opened the show with that. I'll get my thoughts on that coming up in overtime. Thank you for the input, Rhino Radio, the host of the Radio Penitentiary, morning 6 to 10 a.m. here on WQEE. We're also on Game Plus, streaming live on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Take Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902 518 3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
You got something to say? You want to add to the show? What are you waiting for? Don't just sit there. Say something. Now, back to the studio with Rod.
Welcome back, everybody, for Overtime. What do we need to know? What do you need to know about overtime? I'll say this. Hockey teams, are you looking for just the right place for your team bonding sessions and outings? Look no further than Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary. With state-of-the-art equipment, spacious shooting lanes, and games for all ages, Overtime Hockey Lanes is the perfect destination to build your team, whether you're from the Calgary area or if you're on the road from out of town. Book your lanes today, 28th Street, Northeast Calgary. Tell them RP sent you. A few things in my mind. 902-518-3033. Mike Keenan, I'm telling you, is going down as one of the biggest interviews we've ever had. So thank you to Penguin Random Books for putting the Bowmanville, Ontario product on the show. His book, Iron Mike, My Life Behind the Bench, is available now. Scott in Moose Jaw writes in, he says, Keenan is awesome. Famous for the first period goalie poll. That's the thing. You mention his name, and there are so many reactions. Jeff the Stamps fan saying, the biggest jerk in hockey. Where does that come from? By the way, if Jeff the Stamps fan is still watching, I saw on Twitter, just in the break, Mark Steven, the voice of the Calgary Stampeders, tweeting a photo from Stamps practice. I didn't know PJ Walker was there. Did you guys all know that? The former MVP of the XFL a few years ago? Or one of those spring leagues. So who signed with Carolina, right? Carolina Panthers. Obviously, that experiment's done. The auditions to be the next quarterback of the Calgary Stampeders have begun. Randy from Winnipeg writes in and says, great lineup today, RP show. It was great. Moose, stay in Indonesia. Gold, Jerry, gold. I see what's going on in the comment section there. My commentary today is at rodpedersen.com. We talked about the good, the great, and the ugly. And the ugly is that the CFL playoffs for the first time since 1945 will not feature a team from Alberta. That's ugly. And the auditions have begun for positions there. You can't really begin the cleanup until the disaster hits, which for sports teams, it's the end of the regular season. But it looks like in Calgary and Edmonton, they're not waiting. Not real patient towns there, I've found. Freddie in Winnipeg writes in and says, hey, RP show, good show as always. I'm worried about the Oilers getting past a weak third defensive pairing on the departure of Dillon and their other injuries to Heinola and Stanley. He's talking about the Oilers and Jets meeting on Wednesday night. Well, it's just one game. Please don't. The season hasn't even started yet, and they're worried already in Winnipeg. Don't do that. Let's wait and see how it plays out. Poll question. I'm a little surprised. Clark, can you tell me what is the latest on YouTube, the poll? What's the game of the night in the NHL? There are only 3. Who's leading? Yeah. Wow. What do they got? 53% Boston, Florida, running away with it. That surprises me a little bit. I thought that the Bedard factor with Chicago going into Utah, the curiosity factor of wanting to see that rink in Salt Lake City might usurp what's going to go on here in Sunrise, Florida tonight. where the Panthers raised their Stanley Cup banner in a rematch of the second-round playoff series between the Panthers and the Bruins. That's cool. And I'm going to tell you right now, as I said to Rempel last hour, all I've ever wanted to do is cover the National Hockey League. It was like, why is this taking so long? Why is this so hard? But finally, I'll be there tonight with the Cats and Bolts podcast and with the South Florida Tribune. I actually think I'm going to go real early. I'd probably throw a suit on here right after this show and head down to Sunrise. It's 27 miles as the crow flies. BW in Edmonton says, I'm 90 minutes behind. Looking forward to this incredible show. Hey, I feel like our year-end show has been sewn up here over the last week. The Rempel interview on Vince McMahon has got to go in the year-end, and obviously the Mike Keenan too. Just tremendous segments today. And to be honest, the chat with Craig Custance from The Athletic about his book, The Franchise, about building Stanley Cup winners, that was not shabby either. I feel like you're all sleeping on that. Rich Robertson in Edmonton watching and writes in, he says, Iron Mike, during the 1987 7-game Stanley Cup Finals, came damn close to beating the seemingly unstoppable Oilers. I got to tell you something. Did you not sense that we could have gone for a couple of hours with Iron Mike? Just sitting there having a good old hockey discussion, because I got a lot of friends that were on that Flyers team. Jeff Chikrin being one, formerly of the Florida Panthers television crew. Brian Propp. They feel that was the best team to ever not win the Stanley Cup, the 87 Flyers. I could have asked Keenan that. Ran out of time. Phil is in Dauphin, Manitoba. He writes in, he says, I love this time of year. Hockey starting, NFL, college football in full swing, the Bombers winning. It's the most wonderful time of the year. For a guy like me with ADD, diagnosed, I don't care for it. I like the spring better, where there's just hockey to follow. Stanley Cup playoffs, junior hockey playoffs, but that's just me. To me, there's a little too much going on, but it certainly gives us a lot to talk about here, and it seems to keep you all interested. So thank you to Kelly Rempel. Thank you to Craig Custance, the beautiful Serena Dawn Taylor, and Iron Mike. We'll do it all again tomorrow, noon Eastern, right here, same time, same station.
Who has more fun than us?